The Blowtorch Murder by L. Ron Hubbard. The crime, which the papers played up as the Blowtorch Murder, occurred, so it seems, at 6 o'clock that spring evening, though it was not discovered until 6 the following dawn, much to the disgust of Ham Logan, the homicide veteran. Springtime was rather trying for Ham. He was sleepy enough for 10 months of the year, but in spring? That afternoon, a couple hours before the announced time of the killing, Ham Logan was stretched out on a bench, his derby hat tilted over and hiding his small eyes and fat jowls, but revealing his open mouth, from which came sonorous symphonies of pure enjoyment. His hands were folded across his paunch and gently rose and fell in perfect time. All in all, it was a very peaceful scene. The sergeant at the desk had his feet higher than his head, his collar was open, and he dozed blissfully to the accompaniment of the twittering birds outside the station house. At 4 o'clock, crime raised its ugly face in the form of Weasel Martin. Weasel Martin was thin, quite able to squeeze through cell bars. He was dressed in a checkered vest, a black coat, and light-colored pants. He swung a cane and tried to look repentant. Weasel Martin rapped sharply on the desk to wake up the sergeant. Ham Logan shoved back his derby and sat up, blinking at this unheard-of appearance. The sergeant lowered his feet and scowled to hide the fact that he'd been asleep.
I just stole a car.
The sergeant looked at Ham, and Ham looked at the weasel.
Since when,
Said Ham,
did you get so law-abiding as to steal cars?
Never mind when. I stole it, all right?
The sergeant yelled for an officer, and when that worthy had lumbered into the room, the sergeant said,
Check up and see if Weasel's lying. Meantime, lock him up.
The weasel, still trying to look sad, was led off to the cells. Ham Logan scratched his head for a while and then began to slump down for another 40 winks. At 4:30, Chink Edwards came bustling in, very much in a hurry. He looked rumpled, and his slant eyes were as shifty as ever. He was pasty white.
What do you do with guys who break windows?
The sergeant pulled himself awake, lowered his feet, and blinked. Ham Logan raised his derby and peered under the black brim.
I said, I broke a window. What you gonna do about it?
You broke a window? I thought you were in the numbers racket.
Beat it.
Said the sergeant.
You mean that you ain't got more respect for the citizens of this town than to let them go around breaking windows every time they feel like it?
The sergeant scowled horribly and yelled for another officer.
Lock him up and see about it. The chink says he broke a window.
The chink was led off toward the cells.
Like a convention.
Neither of them had time to settle themselves. Papa Johnson and Joey the Mick wandered in and looked the place over with critical eyes. Papa Johnson looked like a turtle with his long, hooked nose and his oversized collar. Joey the Mick was wearing a brilliant yellow suit and a purple silk shirt and a tan derby. They both smiled and bobbed their heads in greeting.
What the hell is this? Old Home Week?
We heard.
Began Papa Johnson.
We just beat up Flossie, the Chinks girl.
Said Joey the Mick.
You still arrest guys for assault and battery here?
Ow! Has the Salvation Army been around or what? Who cares what happens to the Chinks mole, huh? Go on, beat it.
You mean that you allow our fair city to become stained with women beaters? You mean you won't uphold the worthy statutes of the state?
That from a snow peddler? Wait until we catch up with you, Papa. You'll find out all about jails then. I thought you had a smart mouthpiece with you. He wouldn't worry about beating up a dame. What's the racket?
Neither Joey the Mick nor Papa Johnson had anything to say. The sergeant called out another officer and instructed him to lock up both of the newcomers.
Wait a minute. Where's Dude McFarlane? What's the idea anyway?
Perhaps my lawyer will be here a little later. At present, gentlemen, pray do your duty.
They too were led away, leaving Ham sitting up straight and frowning darkly.
Something funny about this. Just you wait. All hell's gonna pop loose.
Think so? Maybe they suddenly got a conscience or something.
Conscience? Those guys would cut off a kid's hand to get a stick of candy. Any one of them. What's the gag?
It puzzled him not a little, but soon the spring air stole over them, and the twittering birds lulled them, and they dozed on, waiting for the 6 o'clock shift. At 6, nothing had happened, but Ham stayed around until midnight, sleeping on the hard benches and in the chairs, waiting. At 12 o'clock, a lawyer named Lambert bustled into the station with a briefcase and an air of preoccupation. The new desk sergeant looked at her.
"You've got 4 or 5 men here,"
Said the lawyer.
"I want them out."
What do you mean?
Said the sergeant.
"Martin, Edwards, Johnson, and Joey the Mick. They haven't done anything."
Ham Logan woke up in the corner and pried the derby off his face. He approached the lawyer.
I thought Dude McFarlane was their mouthpiece.
I have been called. That is all I know. What are the charges?
The sergeant looked over the day book and discovered that Weasel Martin was wanted for stealing a car, that Chink Edwards had broken a window, and that Papa Johnson and Joey the Mick had beaten up a woman.
Have you made any investigations into these charges?
The sergeant looked through the day's report, growing more and more puzzled.
Why, no. No stolen cars have been reported. Haynes couldn't find a broken window in the whole town. What's this all about, Lambert?
Lambert looked toward the door. The girl named Flossie came in, walking with greasy hips.
Tell these gentlemen that you haven't been touched.
Who do you mean? Said Flossie.
Tell them that you didn't see Papa Johnson or Joey the Mick all day.
Those dear boys? Why, of course not.
Huh. Keep them in on principle. They got it coming.
I can't do that.
Said the sergeant.
Isn't there something I could hold them on? Disrespect of the law?
I don't know of anything, damn it.
Let them out.
Said the sergeant to an officer. It was exactly 1 o'clock when Weasel Martin, Chink Edwards, Papa Johnson, and Joey the Mick filed out of the station. They told Ham Logan goodbye very politely when they went. Flossie gave Ham a cheap smile and followed them.
Well, there's nothing I can do.
He yawned noisily and adjusted his derby.
I'm going home and get some sleep.
The body was found at 6 the next morning, and at 5 minutes after 6, the phone beside Ham Logan's bed knifed his slumbers with its raucous roar.
Hello?
Desk.
Said the receiver.
Get over to the Hanover's hotel right away. You know more about this than anyone else.
No more about what? Honest, I don't know anything, and besides, 6 is a hell of a time.
Dude McFarlane's been murdered.
I knew it. I knew it. Something was bound to happen. Just went. What else?
Go on over and find out.
Ham Logan peeled off his nightshirt, put on his derby, and dressed. He staggered out into the half light of spring and took a trolley car to the Hanover Hotel. 2 men were waiting there for him. He shoved them aside and took the elevator. Another man stood outside the room twiddling his nightstick.
In there.
Said the officer.
Anybody here yet?
Not yet.
Ham went in. Dude McFarlane was dead. No question about it, whatever. He was sprawled in the center of the room, arms outflung, black mouth gaping, sleek hair still sleek, black eyes wide open. In life, the man had been slender, even lean, but now his stomach was grotesquely swollen under his torn evening shirt as though about to explode.
Poison? Or...
Ham walked around the body. He moved sluggishly as though his shoes were made of lead. He sighed deeply and sat down in an easy chair to wait for the headquarters gang and the coroner. There was nothing he could do before they came. The door slammed open, and activity and noise rushed into the room. The coroner was followed by a fingerprint man, a photographer, and 5 reporters who eagerly sent their pencils flying. Blake, the coroner, nodded to Ham.
Done anything?
Huh. Waiting for you. Let's get this thing over with.
Blake, conscientious as any coroner should be, and although not required by law to do any detecting, was anxious to help out. He knelt beside the corpse and, as a formality, placed his stethoscope against McFarlane's chest.
Dead.
Said Blake. He examined the dead man's mouth, playing a flashlight into it.
Corrosive action on the flesh. My God, Ham. It looks like this guy swallowed a keg of molten steel. Tissue all burned up as far as I can see.
Ham looked about the floor and picked up a blowtorch which lay in a pile of burned matches. The fingerprint man dusted it and found glove marks only.
It would appear that they turned this blowtorch down his throat. Is that right?
Yes, that would do it. Hell of a way to die. Blue flame didn't even blacken his teeth, but it charred his tongue, ate up most of his throat too. Blowtorch seems to be the answer.
Blake looked the body over.
No marks of violence at all. Whoever did this just held him down and squirted fire down his throat. Killed him instantly.
He tapped the taut and swollen stomach.
But this looks like it might be poison of some kind. Have to have a thorough autopsy, of course. Still, hot flame shot into a man's insides would be apt to puff him up quite a bit. Ventilating system must be good in here. Otherwise, the odor would drive us out.
Thanks. Now, listen.
And his voice took on the tone of a prayer.
How long has he been dead?
We can determine that 2 or 3 ways. Post-mortem rigidity would be delayed a little, I think, by this applied heat. Make it 4 hours minimum time. Now,
He took a clinical thermometer from his bag and took McFarlane's body temperature.
body heat 87, room about 70. A little higher because of this blowtorch.
Blake scowled for a moment and then said judiciously,
That looks like he's been dead 11 or 12 hours. But wait a minute. Let me try something else.
Ham sighed deeply. So far, it looked like Dude McFarlane had been killed between 6 and 9 the evening before. And if that were so, then what a hell of a case this would be. Blake made some preliminary coagulation tests. The dead man's blood was thick and heavy, clinging to the applied horsehairs and dragging them.
I think I'm right. He was killed 11 or 12 hours ago. I'll make a thorough autopsy for poison. That swollen stomach looks suspicious.
He packed his things into his black bag.
That all you want, Ham?
Got the pictures?
Ham asked the photographer.
Okay, take it out. I'm gonna stay around here for a little while and think. Wait a minute.
He leaned over the corpse and unfastened an expensive watch from the stiff wrist.
Now go ahead.
Since when did you start stiff frisking?
I want to see whether dead men wind watches.
The apartment was cleared, and Ham wandered through the rooms looking things over. In a closet on the floor, he found a white vest which contained a few coins and a cigarette lighter. He brought it out to the light and examined it.
Huh. That's funny.
Said Ham, removing his derby and scratching the few hairs which remained on his otherwise lacquered head.
That's funny as hell.
He laid it on the desk for future reference and then turned his attention to Dude McFarland's files. A small strongbox had been forced open. Not even dust remained. Ham went to all the deep ashtrays in the apartment and discovered a fluttery heap of black paper ash in each.
Records. Incriminating records.
The easy chair beckoned to him. He sank luxuriously into its depths and pulled the phone over to him. He called headquarters.
Round up Chink Edwards, Papa Johnson, Joey the Mick, and Weasel Martin. Hold them for questioning.
Okay, Ham, how's it going?
Feel like a squirrel trying to crack a cast iron nut.
He rang off and called the morgue.
Hello? Yeah, have you got McFarland's corpse there? Yeah? Well, listen, go into the autopsy room and see what kind of vest he was wearing. Yeah, that's so. Black vest. Thanks. Give me that autopsy report as soon as you can.
He eyed the white vest on the desk for a full minute and then muttered.
He'd know better than that. You don't wear a black vest with a tailcoat. You wear a white vest. Or Dude McFarland would.
Ham took the blowtorch out with him and approached the nearest hardware store. Yes, that was a Vesuvius blowtorch. Only one store in town carried them. Ham took himself there and found that the store was a narrow affair set between dingy houses, fronted by an entanglement of red rakes, dusty garden hose, watering cans, and brooms with green and yellow handles. The proprietor came out rubbing his hands when the dinner bell tinkled over the door. He was small, hunched over, and he wore a round cloth cap squarely on his gray locks. He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and saw that Ham carried a blowtorch.
This was bought here, wasn't it?
Yes, it's a Vesuvius torch. Well, what's the matter, huh? I can't give no money back. It's been used.
He eyed Ham for a moment.
But maybe I could give half, huh? I hope it gave satisfaction. If it did.
It gave satisfaction, all right.
Said Ham. He flipped open his shiny dark coat and showed the proprietor his badge.
I want to know who bought it.
Oh, yes, I maybe got a sales slip. I only sold one like this in 6 months. You wait right here.
Ham sank down on a keg of rusty nails and waited patiently. Soon the proprietor came back with a sales slip. Ham took it from him.
Can't remember the guy who bought it?
Sure. I remember him fine.
Ham waited, fearing to breathe. Here was the clue and the case, the hardware man added.
A messenger boy. He was a little fella
Right.
with...
10,000 in town. But look here, he also got a thermos bottle. How about that?
That's right. A small thermos bottle.
Ham stuffed the slip in his pocket and went out. He took a trolley car back to headquarters. The sergeant took his feet off his desk.
I got the quartet for you, Ham. They're singing soprano plenty. Anything turn up?
I don't know.
Said Ham. He sat down at his own desk and took up the phone. He asked Blake in the morgue.
You got that autopsy yet?
Pretty near. I'm hanging around. No poison, though. That's out. I've been trying...
Still say he was dead 12 hours?
According to coagulation, I think so. At least the report on this autopsy would stand in court. He had clots in his arteries as big as your thumb, and...
Forget it. Forget it. What about that bloated stomach?
Nothing to it. Just hot air. That's all. They shoved the blowtorch down his throat, and the air was forced along with the flame. About the time he's been dead. I might mention that extreme conditions such as terrific heat would hasten coagulation, and it might
You don't
appear...
mean it.
Said Ham, sitting eagerly forward.
Then there's a chance that he wasn't dead more than...
You're wrong. In a case of this sort, it is necessary to fall back on body temperature. And I found he was 87 degrees. That means, with this coagulation and all, that he was dead 12 hours. There's no getting around it.
All right.
Said Ham wearily, hanging up. He made his way down to the bullpen. Excited voices could be heard, but when Ham entered, the quartet turned to him with smiles.
Nice shirt you've got there.
Said Ham to Joey the Mick. Joey the Mick vainly touched his purple silk.
Yeah, ain't it? I got one for every day in the week.
Is that so? Ever wear tailcoats and things?
What I want with tailcoat?
I thought so. By the way, have any of you boys been on Sunday school picnics lately?
4 heads told him no very seriously.
Then what do you want with a thermos bottle?
They grinned at him and said nothing. Their expressions plainly inferred that he was crazy. Ham shoved back his derby hat and pried his thumbs under his suspenders and glowered at them.
Listen, you mugs. I don't want to have to go over you with a rubber hose. McFarlane was your lawyer. He had the goods on you and tried blackmail, didn't he?
4 mouths, in various stages of distortion, remained soundless.
Come on, what did you do it for?
You inferred that we murdered him. Why should we? A fine, upright pillar of the law, McFarlane. Said
Papa Johnson haughtily.
Then why did you have Lambert spring you?
A cheaper job,
said Joey the Mick.
McFarlane cost dough,
added Weasel Martin, dusting a speck from his extremely cut blue coat. Lambert came puffing with writs and insistence.
Now look here, Logan. This thing has gone far enough. You can't hold these men for murder.
Ham merely looked at her.
I have all the necessary papers. You have no evidence against them. I am fully cognizant of all the details of this case. McFarlane was killed between 6 and 9 last night with a blowtorch. All 4 of these men, according to your own books, were in this station from 4:30 or so until midnight last night. They could not have murdered McFarlane. The thing is simple.
Too damn simple.
Then let them out instantly. You can't hold them for murder.
I ain't holding them for murder.
Said Ham, snapping his suspenders.
They're here as material witnesses.
But how could they witness?
You never can tell,
said Ham and walked thoughtfully away. He went to his office and sat down in his specially upholstered swivel chair. He put his feet on the desk and held the phone to him.
Hello, Blake there? Well, listen, Blake. You still sure McFarlane...
Damn it, what's the matter with you? Won't you take no for an answer? McFarlane was murdered between 6 and 9 last night. The coagulation and the body temperature showed that. We couldn't find a bit of poison in his body. The corrosive action to the tissue.
What his guts look like?
Black. Black as coal. The whole stomach and esophagus were fried. Even part of his lungs.
Is that so?
Yes, that's so. And in case you forget again, McFarland was killed between 6 and 9 last night.
Okay.
Said Ham docilely and hung up. He placed the blowtorch before him and pumped it up. Then he opened the valve, let the gasoline run for a moment, and finally lit up. The torch roared hoarsely. The lieutenant shoved his red nose into the office.
Hey, I thought you was working on the McFarland case.
I am.
Well, what are you doing playing with that blowtorch? You'll burn the whole place down.
The lieutenant notwithstanding, Ham let the torch run for 15 minutes and then shut it off. Locking his office and leaving the blowtorch behind him, he went down to the corner shop and, perching upon a rickety stool, consumed a hot roast beef sandwich, 3 cups of coffee, and 2 pieces of pie. He went back to the torch and felt it hopefully. It was red hot. He phoned the desk.
Wake me up in about 2 hours, will you?
Okay, Ham.
Ham ticked back in the swivel chair, placed his shoes on the desk, tilted forward his hat, folded his hands across his comfortable stomach, and dozed peacefully. A homeless fly came and explored his mouth. A large beetle methodically smashed out its brains against the window pane. The phone rang, and Ham thanked the desk. He felt of the torch and found it very cold.
Well, that didn't get me any place, did it?
He took McFarland's watch out of his pocket and laid it beside the torch. The square face was gold, and the hands had a diamond chip in each. That done, he again adjusted himself in his chair, folded his hands, and again went to sleep. About 6 o'clock, the lieutenant looked in and coughed hard enough to shake the walls. Ham came slowly awake and lowered his feet, almost knocking the watch off the desk.
Say, Logan, you know what I heard this morning?
The lieutenant paused for effect.
I heard that a guy named Dude McFarland was murdered, and that another guy named Logan was supposed to be on the case. Did you hear anything about it?
Oh, yes. I'm working on it now.
The lieutenant left his scowl hanging heavily in the room. Ham went down to the coffee shop and had a double order of ham and eggs. He sopped the yellow up with his bread and indulged himself in 4 slices of apple pie. Then he washed everything down with a 3rd cup of coffee and went back to his office. For a time, he was very busy. He wrote,
Things I ought to believe. McFarland was killed with a blowtorch. He was killed just when he was starting out for a good time. That he was dead 12 hours. That the 4 mugs were in jail when it happened.
when he considered this, he wrote another list, a somewhat idiotic group of words which apparently meant nothing in particular.
Black, white, night, morning, time, watch, up, down, red, green, hot, cold, paper, ashes, back, forth.
He put the purloined watch under the light beside the blowtorch and then, shrugging himself into a more comfortable position, once more went to sleep. At 3 o'clock that morning, Ham Logan went down to the desk. The sergeant looked up.
Book Chink Edwards, Weasel Martin, Papa Johnson, and Joey the Mick for murder.
What the hell? I thought that...
Ham saw Lambert coming then. Ham walked down the hall to the cells and routed out the 4.
I didn't want to keep you in suspense.
Said Ham to the quartet.
You're booked for McFarlane's murder.
What the hell do you mean?
Snarled the weasel.
You can't do that.
Snapped Chink Edwards.
We were all in jail when it happened.
Cried Joey the Mick.
My dear sir,
Said Papa Johnson.
you are utterly insane.
Look here, Flatfoot!
Blustered Lambert.
You're overstepping yourself. You haven't any proof of this thing.
I haven't, huh? Well, dead men don't wind watches, for one thing. This watch stopped 10 minutes ago. If McFarlane had been killed between 6 and 9 night before last, he wouldn't have had time to wind his watch, would he? Everybody winds watches when they go to bed, and Night Owl McFarlane never turned in until dawn. But he did wind it, so he was killed early yesterday morning, maybe about 3 a.m.
That's no proof! You can't make it stick.
Howled Lambert.
Rats. You guys are dumb. You walked in here and gave yourself up for a perfect alibi. Well, McFarlane wasn't dead until after you got sprung.
But the coroner...
We ain't arguing this in court. But I want to let you guys know you ain't so smart. Blowtorch. Hell, McFarlane wasn't killed with a blowtorch. He was killed with a thermos bottle. You guys got scared. You thought McFarlane had too much on you. You had to kill him and burn his papers. After we let you out, you went up to his apartment about 3 or 4 a.m., pulled him out of bed, and murdered him. Then you put his evening clothes on him to make it look like it'd been done earlier. But you didn't know that guys wear white vests with tail coats. His stomach was all swollen up, wasn't it? Blake said it had air in it only. Well, that was enough. I just called Blake and checked this with him. Extreme conditions make the blood coagulate faster, fixing a different time of death. McFarlane was colder than he should have been. He was only dead a couple hours when we found him, and yet he'd lost 12 degrees, see?
That doesn't prove...
Began Lambert.
Rats. You wanted us to believe he was killed with heat. He was opposite everything. Why not that? You guys poured liquid air down his throat. That's almost 190 degrees below 0 centigrade. It froze the guy's throat and stomach instantly, meat freezing black, and then gradually passed off into regular air, leaving no trace at all, just swelling up his stomach, because the stuff expands about 500 times, or maybe 15 or 100 or something, all of which, like burning, comes under the head of corrosive action, coagulating the blood quicker and cooling the body like he'd been soaked in ice water. I don't know how you mugs figured all that out. Guess it was you, huh, Papa Johnson? Well, you weren't smart enough to change his clothes right or to steal his watch. And you forgot the air would swell up his stomach when it evaporated. And you forgot to cover your tracks on that thermos bottle. You took the thermos bottle away and left the blowtorch, see? And thermos bottles is what they use to carry liquid air, it boiling off so easily.
Ham adjusted his hard-boiled hat, rocked a little on his heels, and grinned. But the grin faded into a yawn, and he walked away, leaving the quartet wilted and goggle-eyed, clinging to the bars.
Expect a dead man to wind the watch, huh?
Said Ham to the desk, elaborately rubbing his eyes.
Well, it's been a long day. I guess that I better get home and get some sleep.